Now, before we get to a break, let's move on to some other stuff. Labor has been accused of being asleep at the wheel. You would have seen this week after 93 foreign criminals were freed following a High Court decision last week. Earlier today, Home Affairs Minister Clare O'Neil said the government doesn't have any power to re-detain these criminals. And let's not forget, we're talking about murderers, rapists, possibly even terrorists here. Here's what she had to say earlier today.
It's abundantly clear from the High Court's decision that I can't detain these people. The scheme that has been set up will need some refinement. I think the opposition understands that and the government understands that. When the reasons for decision are handed down at the beginning of next year, we will then be able to look at what else we can do about this.
Now, Kel, on Thursday, I interviewed a reporter from the West Australian, Caleb Runciman, who, apart from having a great first name, went and stayed in one of the motels where a lot of these people went in Perth. And he said there was no control whatsoever, no security, no one monitoring them. They're having discussions about how they're going to go and buy some weed. When he rocked up to the motel, he found his key under a pot plant. He didn't even have to check in. So how are we meant to have any confidence that these new laws they passed on Thursday night are actually going to do anything?
Well, these are the strongest laws that the opposition could get them to pass. But Clare O'Neil made this bizarre point that we don't have the power to do this. You are the legislator. You make the laws. If you pass a law, it becomes law. Chris Mitchell wrote a brilliant piece in The Australian this week explaining the High Court has been pursuing this line where it dislikes sentences imposed by legislation. It wants judges to impose sentences. OK, write a piece of law, a piece of legislation which does that.
Correct.
It says if you are a criminal with this kind of history and you're not a citizen of Australia, then you come under this law and you can be imprisoned by a judge for a set period of time, 25 years to life or whatever you put in the legislation.
Or
then
better yet, deported.
Well, you're going to have problems with deep, but you can lock them up. We had them locked up. You can lock them up again. You can pass a piece of law which says the judges will send them away for a long time and the High Court would approve that. Now, that's Chris Mitchell's argument.
Insane.
And Clare O'Neil doesn't know it. She doesn't understand the law.
She doesn't want to know it, I think,
she's trying to blame the previous government. But I think every single Australian is just mortified by this revelation.
Well, you would be.
That you can be a refugee, an asylum seeker. You can come here at the behest of the nation. We extend a hand of, sure, we'll help you out. You can commit an absolutely vile crime. We're talking about pedophiles. We're talking about murderers. We're talking about rapists here. You can do that and we can't detain you indefinitely. Neither can we deport you. I'm sorry, if you come here and do something like that and you're not even one of our own, you get to go back to where you came from.
But the problem is, to be clear, we have to be clear though, the problem is they haven't done it when they're here. That's the problem. So they haven't done it when they're here. So our justice system
No, they
can't
have.
actually
I'm sorry, the bloke who was the test case in this, the man who raped a 10-year-old boy, did it while he was in Australia.
Sure.
And he is the test case.
The other detainees that they're talking about who are running for, and again, something has to be done.
No, Joe, they can. We pass legislation which says if you have that criminal history,
that's right.
And you don't have citizenship.
That's right. So the murders, for example, didn't occur here. But the point is, Kel is absolutely right. The government is talking about, is sort of, and again, if you talk about conspiracy or cock-up, I think this is totally a cock-up. The government doesn't want these people out there. It's been embarrassed by the High Court decision. Its problem is not that it's actually in support of this decision. Its problem is that it didn't see it coming. And so Clare
But that's their job.
That's right.
Before we get to the final word, Caroline, I don't buy that for a minute. The government knew it was happening in June.
Well, the difficulty that I have, and anyone who has practiced in litigation, you always do a contingency plan before a decision comes down.
Yes.
Because there is the whole point of the reason that why people mediate settlements, this is obviously a slightly different case, is to get rid of the uncertainty of court decisions. There should have been contingency plans in place if they won and if they lose and if there was something potentially in between. This legislation should have been ready to go and...
Or better legislation.
Before this, or ready to go before this decision came down, at least the coalition briefed. Then they came up with this wishy-washy law. Peter Dutton had to do their homework for them, and now we've got all these people who are out, and we don't know how to deal now that the horse is bolted.
Peter Dutton was basically the Prime Minister on Thursday. It was extraordinary.